Hello everyone, welcome to AdaDerana BIZ 24. International Institute of Health Sciences, if not we all know it as IIHS. Sri Lanka's premier and leading healthcare education institute, renowned for producing an eminent and qualified nursing workforce, has recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the NHS Improvement East England. That is to provide qualified nurses from Sri Lanka. And in expanding this project, they have got into working with Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust related to mental health nursing training programs. Now, if you are already a qualified nurse or if you look forward to get into nursing, this is a program that you have to be involved in. And to talk about all of this, we today have two guests. And that is, first of all, let me introduce you to Paul Johnson. Hello, Paul.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Good to have you in the program. And to introduce him officially, he is the Associate Director of Nursing and Group Analytic Psychotherapist working for Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust. And thank you so much for being part of our program today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And next, I would like to introduce you to Ms. Farzana Khoza, Head of Resourcing at Lancashire and South Cumbria Foundation Trust. Hello to you.
Hi,
Farzana.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And thank you for joining for our discussion today on AdaDerana to talk about something that is very timely about nursing. And out of it, we're going to be talking about mental health nurses as well. Now, to start off the conversation, I would like to ask Paul the question. Let's first talk about this collaboration with IIHS. What made you collaborate with IIHS in the very first place?
Well, we were introduced to IIHS at the beginning of the year and heard about the work that was taking place in IIHS and the work that was taking place in Sri Lanka. It sounded very interesting. It sounded like we could work in partnership. So a delegate of health staff came out in May and we met with IIHS and we heard about the organisation, the programs of work that take place across the organisation, plans of expansion. We were really impressed with the quality and the delivery of nursing staff in IIHS and actually thought we could work in partnership and both organisations, the NHS and IIHS, could really benefit from a collaborative partnership.
That's great. And since we are going to focus a little bit on mental health today in this interview, I would like to ask you, why is mental health important?
Mental health is vital. We all have mental health. Everyone has mental health and some days it's good and some days it's less good. We've had a pandemic when we know the pandemic has shown that we're more distressed following the pandemic, increase of self-harm and psychosis. So it's about recognising that people need help. People need access to help and we should be speaking about mental health. It's not something we should be frightened of because it's really vital to all of us.
That's important. I think that's what they say, your mental health is important as your physical health.
Absolutely, just as important.
Yeah, sure it is. And next I would like to ask Farzana the question now. Everyone's talking about demand. They would say that the demand for nurses in Sri Lanka varies from the demand for nurses in the UK for obvious reasons. I would like to ask you the question, what is the demand? Like, how is the demand in UK for nurses overall?
So nursing is really key to the healthcare that we provide within the UK at the moment. Whilst we're doing a lot of training and training a lot of newly qualified nurses, it's not currently meeting the demand within our services. So one of the things that we really recognise is we do need to scope out internationally. There is a lot of experienced nurses out there, qualified experienced nurses in mental health in particular. And that's one of the reasons that we are now looking to develop and strengthen some of our partnerships abroad, and IIHS being one of them, to try and source some really experienced nurses and newly qualified nurses who have been working through the organisation. And additional to that, we can provide many opportunities for the nurses as well. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us to work together, meet some of our demands and the supply into the UK, as well as creating some really good career opportunities for other nurses.
That's great. Now, before we start talking about the opportunities, Farzana, I would also like to ask you now, when you say there's demand for nurses in the UK and now you have collaborated with IIHS, do you think that IIHS, the people who qualify out of IIHS, meet that demand, meet that standard to meet the demand?
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're having conversations with IIHS. We recognise the quality level of training that they undertake with nurses at the moment. To enhance what they're doing at the moment is part of the reason why we've developed the NHS mental health module, because that will support in upskilling the nurses and making it more relevant to the NHS as well. So there's real opportunity there for us to kind of build on what's already been delivered in terms of their training, which will really enable them to work effectively and safely when they come and join the organisation.
Amazing. I would like to ask the next question from Paul. Now, talking about IIHS quality of standards and the education that they provide. Now, after signing this memorandum of understanding with you, obviously they're going to have a separate center at the IIHS Multiversity, a training center for NHS itself to provide mental health nurses. What do you think about this?
I think it makes me feel so proud. I think it shows the commitment and the partnership from IIHS and the NHS. This is a long-term plan for us to be able to deliver the training to make sure that we get the right nurses and skill them in the right particular way. So for me, to be given the space and the opportunity to come back to IIHS and to come back to Sri Lanka, to really invest in the nurses here, I think it's a great sign of commitment and the quality and the foresight of IIHS.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think for the ones who are watching, as you know, IIHS provides that quality education, being the premier healthcare education center in Sri Lanka, and now this is the next step of sending all of you who are qualified nurses to UK. So why not get into that and get more information about this system as well, right, Paul?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's such a worthwhile career. It's worthwhile, I think, just being really curious and finding out more about it.
Yeah, that's right. And in finding out more, I'm sure everyone's wanting to know the opportunities in the UK for the mental health nurses. Farzana, would you like to highlight a little bit on the opportunities?
So there's many opportunities in mental health nursing in particular, in terms of the training and development that we can offer nurses when they join the organisation. It doesn't just stop there. We're very focused on around career development and other opportunities that we can create. So it's kind of an ongoing learning process for nurses when they join the NHS. One of the things that we're really key on is things around our values, and we recognise nurses from Sri Lanka in terms of their compassion and respect and how that kind of mirrors the NHS values as well. There's many opportunities. Like I said, the training development, we have really good preceptorship programs, mentoring schemes, coaching and leadership as well. Everything's about developing and enhancing some of the learning that nurses come to the UK with.
Yeah, I think I would like to expand the question a little bit more now. Let's say when it comes to nursing, okay, from small days when you ask in a class, who would you like to be when you grow up? What's your ambition? It's very rare a child says, I want to become a nurse, right? How do we inculcate into the students, and is there any discrimination when it comes to gender biases? Is there any gender biases or age? Because in Sri Lanka, the nursing is not so popular. Not everyone tries to get into it. But the ones who know the benefits out of it, they would like to be a part of nursing and grow their career in nursing. How would you like to encourage everyone, male or female? And what is this discrimination and taboo? Would you like to break the taboo?
Within the NHS, we do have an ageing population, so you know, some of our very experienced nurses that joined a long time ago stayed with the organisations.
Yeah.
Historically, our workforce has mainly been female. However, we've seen a massive change over time. We see more male interest. We have a lot of experienced qualified nurses in males in particular who have developed their careers, and within the NHS, we don't discriminate within gender. You know, we highly encourage both males, females to come into the nursing profession because there's so many opportunities. And we'd like to see that reflective of our communities as well in terms of the gender split. So definitely I would encourage both males and females to consider a career in nursing because it's really rewarding.
Yeah, I think when you say nursing, it's not just one part of the subject, right? Would you like to highlight a little bit on the other opportunities a person could get and develop in the career?
So within leadership, within nursing in particular, there's many opportunities around going into like management opportunities, leadership opportunities, things around training and education as well. So we very much rely on some of our experienced nurses to go and support other new nurses, new students as well. So there's a lot of different pathways that nurses can kind of lead into, depending on what their preference is really. But yeah, many opportunities.
Now, Farzana, I would like to ask you the question, after talking about opportunities, I would like to ask you the question, what are some of the benefits the nurses would get in the UK through NHS?
So as part of the mental health module that we're developing and delivering, that is going to be accessible for nurses at no cost to them. It's going to be fully delivered by obviously ourselves and in partnership with IIHS. That would then guarantee nurses an interview for a mental health nursing position in the UK. Now, upon successful completion of the interview, and if an offer is made, we do offer a really good relocation package to nurses who will be moving to the UK. Now, as part of that relocation offer, we cover things around the costs of flights, making sure that we have arranged airport transfers when they arrive in the UK to the place that they'll be living at. We also provide temporary accommodation for up to 12 weeks. That's really key because it enables the nurses to have somewhere they can settle whilst they're undertaking their OSCE programme. Just some of the other benefits as well alongside that, some of the things that we would cover is reimbursing costs for things such as like their IELTS test, their CBT test, the NMC application fee. We also make sure that we cover the cost of the OSCE exams and the travel to and from OSCE. Now all these costs really do add up for the nurses, it's quite expensive. So one of the things that we want to make sure is when nurses have been through that process, we can reimburse them costs for them because we appreciate how expensive it can be moving from one country to another. That's just some of like the costings that we can help with. Alongside that, in terms of pastoral support, we make sure the nurses are buddied up with nurses that have already travelled and moved to the UK and have already been through that challenging experience. We do other things like making sure that the nurses, you know, we support them with opening their bank accounts, registering with a doctor, making sure that somebody's there to show them around the local community, introducing them to like the local religious places, like if it's a mosque or a church, for example. Anything like that, we try and think of some of the support that the nurses would want and make sure somebody's there to take them and show them around some of them places. The support doesn't end there. Once they've completed their OSCE, got their registration, our practice education teams and our pastoral support teams stay in contact with the nurses just to check in on them, see how they're progressing. And actually, some of the things that we're really keen on is once they join as a Band 5 registered nurse, is what is the next step for them once they experience looking at their career development and promotional opportunities as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving out the details, and I would like to thank Farzana. Thank you for joining with AdaDerana BIZ 24 this program. And soon after the break, we would now like to take a break, but soon after the break, we will be joined by another professional of NHS to talk more about this. And thank you so much, Farzana.
Thank you.
We shall see you soon after this break. Welcome back after the break, and soon after the break I would like to introduce you to another guest joining with us, that is Ms. Jodie Golightly. She is a Senior Project Manager in the Northwest Nursing and AHP Workforce team at NHS England. Hello to you, Jodie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining with us for this interview as well. Now, from the start itself, I would like to ask you the question. Now, IIHS will be signing the Memorandum of Understanding with all of you at the Research Forum to be held on the 23rd of November to train South Asian nurses and recruit them to the UK and especially into mental health nurses. What have you got to say about this? And let's talk a little bit about the process of this whole project.
Thank you. So yes, you're right. We are due to sign the MOU with IIHS in a week's time. We're very excited and very proud to be signing this MOU. It basically puts in writing the partnership and the working arrangement with IIHS. So that is to deliver an NHS mental health module to IIHS students. The way that will work is that we will ask students to apply who meet a certain criteria. After that, they will undertake a course which will be 6 to 3 weeks. This course will be co-delivered by experienced clinicians, both from IIHS and the NHS. After they have taken that course, they'll be guaranteed an interview to be able to work at one of our 6 partnership trusts in the East of England and in the Northwest of England. And at that stage, if they are successful and they've completed the module, we will support them as NHS England with their visa, their cause, in order to bring them over to the UK. So the Memorandum of Understanding really just sets that out. And as I said, we're very excited to follow this model.
That's amazing. I think to anyone who's watching, I would like to break it down as to how you can go through this process. And before you enter into the NHS mental health module, there is a process through IIHS as well. And to break that down, if you are a nurse who is qualified with Bachelor of Nursing at IIHS from the University of Coventry and the Open University of Malaysia, you are eligible to apply for this program. And when you apply for this program, you have to go through a pre-registration program which is named as English Prof, which takes you through all the competency standards which are required by the NHS mental health program. So once you have completed this pre-registration program, you're then ready to enroll with the NHS mental health module, and there onwards I think Jodie cleared it all out, where you can be a certified nurse in the UK. I think this is a dream come true to most of the ones who are in the nursing industry as well. Now, I would like to ask Paul, once they come to UK, now any qualification, you name it, any qualification, there is always a cultural barrier that they have to surpass. There is a language, well, English is a global language, but still there is a difference between the cultures to traditions. How can one overcome these challenges?
I think experience tells us that there are usually 3 areas where nurses struggle when coming across to the UK. I think the first one is around understanding what the work looks like, understanding what is mental health nursing. The module will really help with that. And I think there's something about, I know what I will be doing and I know how to do it.
Right.
The second bit, I think, is around coming into the UK. Everyone talks about the weather, and it's right to mention the weather, it's a culture shock. But there's something about not feeling isolated. Where will I get my food from? How will I get my networks together?
Yeah.
Really, really important things that will help people settle into the community. How do I navigate transport and buses and things like that? So we provide really good pastoral care for our nurses to make sure that actually we settle them in and that they don't feel too lonely and too isolated. But the third thing is, I think people miss home. And people will miss their families and their routine and the things that feel really familiar to them. So I think we try and think very carefully about those 3 aspects for people, because if we can address those 3 aspects, they'll settle more in the UK and be happier in their work.
Coming into Jodie, I would like to ask you the question, why is this project important to South Asian or the Sri Lankan nurses?
Look, we at the NHS recognise the skills and experience of Southwest Asian and Sri Lankan nurses. By developing this NHS mental health module, we'll be handing it over to IIHS. IIHS can then take it and deliver it to whoever they want, and they have that huge influence and that respect with that Southwest Asian market. So it will continue to grow, continue to spread, will continue to grow skills, and it can only go up from there.
That's amazing. Now, coming into Paul, we are talking about mental health nurses. Now, this can be a different topic to Sri Lankan nurses as well. And how would you generally differentiate between the general nurses and mental health nurses?
I think general nurses, I think it's easy to identify if you've broken your hand, then you know that that's where the problem is. If you've broken your hip or you have a heart condition, it's really clear where the focus needs to be.
Yes.
Mental health isn't always that clear.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what we know with mental health nursing is all about relationships. It's all about trying to understand what someone is living with, understand what the symptoms look like, and helping them to understand what does better look like, so that it's a partnership working. And I think that the beauty is it's about working with people, slowing your thinking down, getting to know people, working with families, working with networks, working with schools and education. We want to help people to be the best they can be.
And I would like to ask Jodie the question, now in this mental health nursing training program, in this collaboration with IIHS, from the NHS side, who are the other partners who are involved?
Thank you, great question. So the NHS have partnered with the University of East Anglia in order to create the NHS mental health module. It's very exciting to work with the University of East Anglia, because it gives us the opportunity to bring in senior lecturers who've been working in this space and who've been working with the NHS for over a decade to deliver the best quality module for our Sri Lankan nurses.
That's amazing. And now to bring the whole program to a closing, I would like to get a message from Paul. What have you got to say to the Sri Lankan audience out there?
Wow, what a great opportunity. I guess I would say I've been a mental health nurse now for over 30 years and I've loved every single day of it. If you like working with people, if you're curious and you're calm and you're committed, this could be a really great career for you. Be curious and find out more.
Thank you so much for your message. And on a final note, Jodie, would you like to leave a note as well?
Thank you. So much like Paul said, you know, being a nurse is not just a job, it is a career. The impact that you can have on other people and their families is invaluable, and it's a worthwhile thing to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining with us, Paul and Jodie. Thank you so much for being a part of AdaDerana BIZ 24 today and giving out, spreading awareness on such opportunities, and especially these are opportunities in the UK, and I'm sure very much of Sri Lankans would be interested in this. And to all of you who watched us today, thank you so much for watching, and it's up to you now to spread the word. If you already know qualified nurses, they could be a part of this, or if you know any students who aspire to become nurses, they just have to contact IIHS or visit their website for more information. Thank you so much for joining with AdaDerana BIZ 24. We shall see you with another episode soon.